can I get naked, guys? Are you okay with that? Every question, I take a piece of clothing off.
You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. Today, we're going to be talking about publicity with my good friend, Zack Teperman. Zack is a best-selling author and the president of ztpr, one of the top premier public relations firms across the country, representing some Fortune 500 companies, startups, big names, celebrities, athletes, musicians, some people that you've heard here on the show as well. Starting his career working for the likes of Martin Sheen, the cast of Glee, and even rockers Guns N' Roses, to now helping out companies invested into by Mark Cuban and many, many more. Zack has seen it all and has used his out-of-the-box ideas and strategies to innovate the PR industry worldwide. His new book, Enough of the Bullshit, is available nationwide now. Zack, what's up, dude?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
It's a long time coming, bro.
It is. We've known each other for a few years now, so it's finally good to be on and see your face.
Yeah, dude. You know, there's a lot of people in the PR space, and I, along with probably a lot of our listeners, have wasted a lot of money with terrible PR.
People do that. It's you know what? If I had it's that old saying. If I had $1 for every story I heard about bad PR, I'd be rich. So keep telling me your stories.
Yeah, totally. It was one of those things when I first started that you just don't know what you don't know, and so you get told all these, and you're like, wow, that person was featured in Forbes or whatever.
How the fuck did this guy that has done nothing is on the cover of this magazine? That's usually the story I get.
Yeah, of course. But then you find out that it's really just like a screenshot of the magazine on an online thing that was done 7 years ago in the archives of some blog post. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's fake. That's how.
Yeah.
But they paid 5 Gs for the placement, you know?
There's a lot of that. And it's really sad these days. That's the one thing is, people... there used to be this one thing that everybody would see is like Yahoo News. Everybody'd be like, I'm on Yahoo News. And then you see the logo Yahoo and you see the story, but then you don't realize it says press release. Like it would be like an Access Wire, for instance.
Yep.
And here's a hack. Like you get Access Wire, you pay like $200, $300 to put your press release on a PR newswire type thing.
Yep.
And then Yahoo News picks it up automatically just to put on their site.
It gets distributed to like 400 places.
Right. It gets all 400 things. And then Yahoo's thing is there. And it's not really on Yahoo News' main site or anything like that. And people are like, I'm on Yahoo now. Right. And then you go to like a product page or a company or like a t-shirt line or something.
Featured in.
And it says featured in Yahoo News. And you're like, okay. And the customer's like, yeah, they were featured here, so I trust it. But realize, you click on and it's just like they paid $200 for it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then that's where people lose their ass on these things, is where they get the story sold to them, but it's really just one person who's doing that exact thing. Yeah. Like they just have their own PR Newswire account, and then they just go like, hey, for a small fee of $25,000, we'll get you placed in 50 guaranteed placements. And it's like, anytime I hear the word guarantee and PR in the same sentence, I'm like, nope. Next. Nope. It's impossible to guarantee.
I mean, there are now, funny enough, there are ways to guarantee, and we have a back-end platform that we've created that, we can guarantee placements, but it's a little more costly. But yeah, I mean, real PR, like the good PR, is organic. And PR is obviously figuring out what the story is about whatever and pitching it to an editor or a newscaster, whoever it is, and having them organically do it. And you can't guarantee that, because it's like, you could tell me, hey, I want to sell this watch, right? And I go to the news editor at like LA Times or something, and I say, hey, do a story on this watch. And for whatever reason that day, that editor's like, you know what? I don't want to do a story on the watch. Right. And they say no. So how can you guarantee that you know exactly what that editor and all that is?
Exactly.
But
you can only guarantee the work that's being done.
Right.
You can't guarantee.
You can guarantee I'm pitching it. And that's why, like, when I interview with clients and they're like, hey, tell us, where would you get our thing placed in the next, 30 days? And I go, honestly, I don't know where the fuck it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll pitch it. This is where I want it to go. This is the story angle I want to do, but I can't guarantee that CNN or Fox or whoever is actually going to do a story.
Yeah.
Now, we do have a back-end platform. This is a little, plug here, where we do have about 2,000 different media outlets all across the world from Australia to Germany to US, wherever, where we do have deals with editors to be able to, kind of move up the list of when they will publish a story. And this is an organic story, not a sponsor, not anything like that.
Interesting.
And people can go and they can pay like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is. Different outlets have different prices. And so say we want to do a story on Travis, I can go to a magazine editor and say, hey, here's $5,000, move us up the list, it'll come out in, the next 30 days or something. So there is a way to kind of, these days, unfortunately, journalists aren't getting paid as much as they used to. And so money does speak. And there are different hacks on the back end that you can do to kind of move up the list and get them paying attention.
And the bottom line, though, from my experience anyway, maybe you can speak to this, organic will always outperform paid.
100%.
Like there's no substitute for it, because a really good journalist has people that read the outlet because they trust that person's journalistic integrity. And so whenever one of the most some of the most traffic that I ever got from when we were pushing our product a lot was when you got us actually in TechCrunch.
Yep.
And it was but it was a real article.
It was a real article. We didn't pay and TechCrunch is one that you can't pay for.
Right.
You know, you could buy an ad and you can do that. But and that journalist did a story on you guys and, real
and it
followers.
Brought real traffic.
Right.
Yeah, right. It's just so rare to get traffic from any sort of PR placement, especially if you're paying a shit ton of money for
and what people don't realize also with PR at least is, PR is to get the word out about it, the exposure, the brand awareness. I mean, there's so many different other things PR does, but a lot of people come to me and are like, hey, we got one article. How come we haven't made millions of dollars?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, it doesn't fucking work like that.
Famous?
I mean, realistically, the best ROI that anybody will ever have is taking that TechCrunch article or anything and using that in their ads.
Boosting it,
and, boosting it and doing things with it afterwards, whether it's the logo credibility or anything like that, or in an investor deck or something. And people are like, oh, I just get an article. I don't have to do anything with it after. Right. I'm like, no, you have to use it on social media. You have to use it on your paid media, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there's a whole group of things that makes PR work. Yeah. And if people are just looking for one-off things, it's really just an ego boost at that point. It's not really, something to make money.
Yeah, it's the angle that you sell them has to be based in story. Like they're publishing content. They're publishing real stories.
Right.
They're not there to sell your product.
No.
They're there to get readers to be interested in a story, which like my other one that performed really well was a organic intro from somebody in my network for a Bloomberg article where the journalist was asking about like paying for podcast guesting, like paying for podcast appearances. And with my company, we were doing a lot of that at that time, and a lot of people were against it. So there's the story. Like she knew, like that thing blew up and went crazy on Twitter with a bunch of people coming in there being like, with differing opinions, and people commenting and being like, it's immoral to accept a payment to do a podcast episode. And then
but you know what? Everyone's like, fucking doing it.
Deserve to get paid. You know what I mean? So it's like people like, going back and forth, and like that journalist was looking for something like that, where it's like, ooh, this is an interesting topic. This company is doing this thing. A lot of people disagree with this thing. Some people agree with this thing. I wonder what this founder has to say about it, type thing. And it was like, that's what a real story looks like. And then it got picked up by Business Insider. And then I had a buddy like text me that was like, hey man, I just heard you on like, it was some like audio version of Bloomberg that went out every day on some thing. And it was like a 30-second clip of the interview that I did with this journalist on paying for podcast appearances or whatever. But it was always the best traffic that we ever got was always just the most organic forms of media that we could find.
Well, it's always like what I say is like a lot of people, when you're in it, it's like being in a relationship. You don't see all the other flags, the bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're in with your company, you think your company's the frickin' best. Mm-hmm. And you're like, why isn't everybody talking about my company? This is the best of the best. Like everybody should do a story on it. And it's like, no, like figure when you're like browsing Instagram or anything, like what are you stopping and reading when you're, if you go to CNN or Fox or anything, what articles are you clicking on? It's those headline making, what's different about you or whatever that you're actually clicking on. If it's just like a promo, like this is the best car in the world, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like it's not going to get attention. And an editor's not going to want to organically do that because then they're really just doing an ad for you.
Right.
And people have to realize there needs to be that clickbait kind of story in some sense to kind of appeal to them. And then also on the other side is people don't believe in investing in PR, which is, just a sad part because, I always say, you can have the best product, service, talent, whatever you do, but if nobody knows about it, is it really the best? And so if you're not investing in yourself to get the word out about that, you're really just hoping, the one in a million that somebody just clicks and sees you and is like, oh my God, this goes viral out of nowhere. So
best known beats best.
Exactly.
100% of the time.
And it's figuring out that angle. And if you don't know that angle, that's what a publicist or somebody else does, is to figure out like, what does somebody actually care about who isn't in it like you 24/7, because that's your baby. And sometimes it's hard to have those conversations with clients where it's like, you know what, they really don't care about the product. They care about this instead that your product does, or, this is the topic that actually is going to sell. And it's having those tough conversations that, then get them the organic hits.
Yeah. And then you're also paying really essentially for the relationships.
Right. It's access. Yeah. That's really what a publicist is. I mean, like anybody can realistically, that's why I wrote this book. It's like enough of the bullshit. Like you can do your own PR. You can write your own story. You can use AI to write your own story these days. You can go out there. You can come up with a list of all the editors. You can go to a website and find the editors. You can pitch them. You can talk to them and all that. But realistically, like if you want to fast track it, it's hiring a company like ours, and it's the access. We've got 15 plus years of, relationships where somebody will pick up a phone for me rather than, you. And so
it's really about getting your foot in the door. Like how do I get this person's attention?
Of course.
Yeah.
And once you get that, the first article comes and it's the bandwagon and it just keeps, spiraling.
Yeah. One of the other, better PR pieces that I ever got was it was a Forbes article that was top 10 podcasts that'll change your life or something.
Right.
And it wasn't a, Forbes staff writer. It was one of the,
contributors,
yeah.
Council members.
Yeah. It was not Forbes council, but it was a contributor.
Okay.
But he was a solid contributor, had good views on his articles. And the contributors, you can go to their profile and look at what the views are on articles that they write, whatever. But what ended up happening was I had him on my podcast to talk about a book that he wrote. And then at the end, I just was asking for advice on like, hey, if I wanted to get into Forbes, like, what should I do? Whatever. He was like, I've actually been thinking about doing an article on like podcasts that'll change your life, just like a list of, 10. So I was like, oh, cool. And he basically was just like, if you want, I'll write up the article. I'll just include your show in it. And then I was like, okay, yeah, great. So,
yes, please.
So it was like, it came from an organic relationship where it was not the intention of the interview for me to get him to write an article about me. But it was the intention to learn from him, which is another hack of having the podcast. It was like, people only look at audience numbers as like a metric for success on having a show. But one of those things that I've found is getting your foot in the door with people. Like if I just asked that guy for a phone call, he probably would have been like, nah, but he was promoting a book and wanted to get on shows where he could promote his book. And so we talked about the book, we promoted the book. And then after we stopped the recording button, it was like, hey, quick piece of advice. How would I get myself into, a Forbes feature like this? And then it was even cooler because he allowed me to send him other shows that were shows that I liked by friends of mine who I could go to them and be like, hey, do you mind if I have this person write up an article and include you in a list of top 10 podcasts in Forbes, which is an obvious like, yeah, please, so it allowed me to like be a value add to 3 or 4 other big podcasters and allowed me to put myself in a list that frankly at the time I did not deserve to be in.
But see, that there's the hack. And that's one thing I've actually been doing with clients recently is lists. So the best way to get, like if you're a new product or service, the best way to get in with the consumers that are related to who your demo is to figure out lists, whether it's planting your own lists or going to people that are writing these lists and being in this. Because if someone, like if you're the best, I don't know, pick a product, best shoe company, you have a new shoe that you just came out with, then obviously you want to be with the Nikes, Adidas, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And so you need to get on that list because the people that are looking up the top shoes are going to see your product and see your new shoe. And that's your audience right there. Yep. So it's like your Forbes thing with the lists. Now all of a sudden you have people that are looking at all these other shows. When they Google whatever other shows were above you or below you, you're now in that mix of conversation. So lists are like the easiest, quickest way to kind of, direct market to your audience.
And then when the article came out, I sent it to all the other 9 people that were on the list.
And they promoted it too.
And then they had way bigger audiences than I did, and they all shared it. That I think it's sitting at like 300,000 views or something like that. The people who looked at that article, but it all came out of
a podcast and a relationship, and that's it. Like, people don't understand. Like, I see this all the time in Hollywood. Like, a lot of our celebs, a lot of our top celebs that we rep do not have social media. There's a lot that don't have social media. And I'll name drop, like, somebody will be running a big event for like whatever, the Oscars or Grammys or something. And they'll be like, Zack, who's in town that can come? So I'll name 1 or 2 of our big clients that actually would go to it. And they're like, no, do they have more followers? I'm like, really? This person is iconic, literally iconic. And they don't have social media. They're like, well, we only want, somebody that has 1 million followers. I'm like, man, you don't understand. Like, if you had this person at your event, like, I'm not going to give them the whole education, but I'm like, if you had this person on the red carpet, and that photo is going to go so much further than Joe Schmo, who's got, 1 million TikTokers or something. Yeah, maybe for that 15 minutes quickly, they'll get a lot of hits, and that's good to show your client to be like, look, we got like 1 million hits from this person. Yeah. But like, in the long term, the branding and all that with somebody more iconic, like...
Well, it's also the credibility that you get from that. And like, I always talk about having like the anchor guest. Is like, if you get that A-lister as the anchor guest, all the other people with 1 million followers on TikTok and Instagram, like, they want to go meet that person. It doesn't really matter how many followers this person has. If they're like that level of iconic, they're that anchor that you can then go to somebody who has 1 million followers, and you don't have to pay them a cent for them to show up, because all they want is to rub shoulders and be put on the same level as this other person is.
Well, it's like events. The reason celebs go to events is because the media is there. Yeah. And they want to get talking to the media and all that. That's the only, 90% of the reason a celebrity will go to an event is because there's media. It's to promote, right? The other is that they're supporting their friends or whatever else. Or they're just bored that night. But they'll go because the media is there. But if you don't have the media, so how do you get the media there? You have the celeb there, right? So now you have to cater to the media. You got to, and that's one thing Hollywood's been changing a bit, is they've been treating the media actually nicely. It's like, hey, give them freaking food. Give them, like, tell them, like, give them good shade, put up this, do this, like, treat them well, because you need that camera there. You need them there for that movie or whatever, your business launch or jewelry launch or whatever it is. Because then the celebs will come. And if the celebs come, the media come. And if the more media comes, you're going to get bigger celebs. And it's just a whole big spiral, like, a big circle of it all. And it's funny how times are changing these days. It's sad, unfortunately, in some ways, where, PR has turned into this, like what we talked about at the beginning, where you get a lot of ads on Facebook, like, hey, for, $100 or $1,000, you'll get 5 guaranteed placements. And literally, it's maybe one line in the back page of something in Forbes India's back page or something. And all of a sudden, that PR firm is making it like you're on the cover of Forbes. I mean, it's great repurposing, I guess. But like, people know fakeness. And the thing is, do you want to build your brand on credibility and realness? Exactly. Or do you want to be fake? If you want to be fake, it's easy to go viral. Like right now, if I got naked right here, we're going to go viral. And I've taken clients, and I've done a lot of PR stunts where I've taken somebody and literally within 30 days made them into, huge news and all that. But then they don't have a career after, because it's like, hey, great, they got their 15 minutes of fame, but then a year or 2 later, it's like, who the fuck cares about them? They don't continue, and there's not that credibility there. I mean, I did it for myself. I can't sing, Travis. I can't sing at all. Like, I do, like, a good, my heart will go on, and like, I don't, whatever. But I proved that, like, with the right press and stuff, you can make anybody famous. And that's what I did with myself. Like, I came up with a song. It's called Waves. Go download it on Spotify. And I literally came up with a whole character for it. I partnered up with Pito with it. I went with, the Kardashians and Kevin Hart and a whole lot of other things. And I did all these press articles about how this song is the best freaking song in the world, right? And I literally became #1 on the charts, country charts, all within like 20 days. And I wanted to prove that, like, with the right celebs talking about it, with the right media talking, that anybody, doesn't matter what talent you have, you can become famous, or you could do something. Now, obviously, I'm not a singer. I couldn't follow it up. But it was funny that I got put on, like, I was wearing a big goat mask. There's a whole character and stuff. So if you look me up, you'll see that. But like, it's funny that I'm on all these morning shows and I'm walking in with this big goat mask and they're like, are you ready to perform? I'm just like, yeah, I'm ready to perform. They don't know it's me because I was, just proven. But I'm like lip syncing. Obviously, I can't sing, and I'm doing my dances and everything. And it's just funny that like how easy it is to, with the right story. Again, I had the right story. I had that, like, I was going after celebs that do goat yoga because I was a goat character. And it's kind of like, Marshmallow or any of this, we're wearing the mask. I was a country guy wearing a mask and nobody knew it was me. But the right angle, the right things that stand out, all of a sudden, people are talking. And if you have that right angle, people are going to talk.
Right.
If you don't, if I was just a boring, like, hey, my name's Zack, I came up with a country song, I hope you all listen to it. Like, no one's going to freaking listen.
Yeah, exactly. And not unless you get super, super lucky.
No. And I mean, look how many people here in Nashville on Broadway. Like, there's so many singers with actual good talent that are more talent than people out there. But
oozing with talent,
right? But then you get like the Britney Spears, sorry, Britney, but like people that have not a lot of, vocal talent and they become famous because what was Britney's thing right when she started? It was hit me one more time, right? She was the school girl. It was new, it was fun, it was different. And it was that marketing behind her that really got all the, younger girls, the guys wanted to be with her, the girls wanted to look like her. And it turned into a whole thing where Britney became Britney Spears, right? So it's the same thing with like what you're doing today. And that's the one thing I could always tell people is, why should somebody buy your product? Why should somebody look at your product? Why should somebody talk about you? Why should somebody tune into this podcast?
Right.
And if you can figure out those whys and figure out a different angle than anybody else, then you're going to be freaking successful.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you start piecing those things together? If you're, if you got a podcast, you've done something, you wrote a book, got a business, and you want more attention to it. How do you start thinking more like a publicist rather than just somebody who's trying to be like, please buy my coffee?
Yeah. I always say this, it's the 5-finger rule. Okay. I always do the 5-finger rule is name 5 things about your show or yourself that are not about your show. So 5 things that are interesting about you, Travis. So you're married. You're a father. You've an entrepreneur. You like charity. You like sports. Name 5 things that relate to you that your show is not about. And then what you do for each one of those 5 things, find 10 or 12 media outlets that fall under each one of those categories and just write out those things. So like if it's Sports Illustrated, ESPN, whatever, right? If it's, father, there's Fatherly, the dad, mom, Parents Herald, whatever it is, right? You have all these different things and you figure out those outlets and then you target those audiences and say for each one of those
part of the story,
with that part of your story. It's like, hey, this is Travis. He's been married and all this, but he travels. Like it could be like travel is a good one for you.
Yeah.
So like Travis travels all over. Travis travels. There's a Travis travels everywhere. But
another show coming soon.
But look, you use different podcast studios, you do different things. So maybe it's you creating your own list of the top podcast studios that you've recorded out of and different locations in the world that are the best to talk about. Now, all of a sudden it's a travel story and you're gathering a whole new audience that is actually passionate about what you do. I had the best example I always say is I had this restaurant owner. He owned a restaurant in New York. And I said to him, like, what else do you do that's not like part of cooking or, New York and all that? He goes, well, I do yoga once a week to kind of zen my mind. I'm like, awesome. So yeah, obviously everybody wants the Foxes or the Forbes or the Wall Street Journals and all that kind of stuff. But that audience that's reading that, yeah, sometimes they'll come and they'll click through and they'll see, and it's great for a logo. But we went to a yoga magazine. The yoga magazine only had 20,000 readers, but I guaranteed that conversion rate is much higher than somebody that has 1 million readers.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we did a whole story about how this, guy that owns a restaurant once a week, he does yoga.
Yeah.
And it was a whole story about him doing yoga in the restaurant and all that kind of stuff, in his spare time. And from that article, all of a sudden, all those yoga people that were like, oh my God, we relate to him. We never knew that.
Yeah.
Like, we love this guy. We want to go see and eat at his restaurant because we want to see the guy that's kind of like us.
Right.
And so all of a sudden it was like getting 20,000 new people to his restaurant. And imagine you do that with like 10 outlets in that field.
Yeah.
And then you do 10 others in another field or 10 in the other. All of a sudden you're gathering all these niche demographics that are all of a sudden attracted to what you do. And you're actually building a community around who you are and what your show is or whatever your product that you're selling is.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't realize is they always swing for the fences, but you should always go for the niche.
They want to be on Good Morning America. Yeah.
Great. it's great that you're on Good Morning America. And yes, you'll probably have a great conversion for that, 24 hours after. But then what?
Yep.
Yes, you can repurpose that clip in ads and stuff like that. But wouldn't it be better to have a community that actually follows you and loves you? And no matter what you do, they might not give a shit about your food, but they love who you are as a person. So they're going to come eat there and support who you are. And
the product becomes secondary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that personal relationship. So if somebody can feel like they can relate to you, they're going to buy into whatever it is you're doing. Look at artists, look at Post Malone. Started in one thing, all of a sudden branches out in all these different genres, but people love who Post is. So they'll follow him whatever genre of music he's doing, whether they like that genre or not, because they love who Post is.
Yeah, he's a perfect example of somebody who continuously just reinvents himself, just does random stuff, does what he wants to do, whether it's randomly putting out a country album or
doing a Raising Cane's, a Raising Cane's restaurant. I mean, he does it all. And that's what people have to realize is there's not one way to do something too. And everybody has a story. Some people come to me all the time. They're like, Zach, I don't have a story to tell. I'm like, yeah, you do. Has any of your parents fought in a war? Have anybody been adopted? Have, anybody from another country?
Yeah.
Do you have kids? Do you do this? What's your charities you like? Let's dive into it. Have you ever had a disease? Everybody has a story of some sort, and it's figuring out what that story is. And then you can branch off from that and build a community around your story. And if you can just be yourself, a lot of people, I'm sure you have people that come on your show and all of a sudden they're like, hey, Travis, I'm on I'm on TV right now or a podcast, right? And they put on a whole look and persona and stuff. And it's like, no, man.
Yeah.
Be yourself. It's like in a relationship, be your freaking self, because eventually the truth will come out and that relationship will end. They don't like you.
Yeah, you can only keep up the facade for so long.
Exactly. So a lot of people try to see what's out there and what's successful, and they try to mimic it, and that's the wrong way to go at it. You can take things from that, learn, from mentors or whatever else, but be yourself, man, because that's what people are going to love.
Yeah, right. What are some of the pitfalls that people, when it comes to PR specifically, what are some of the pitfalls for business owners, entrepreneurs, anybody that's listening to this that's this all sounds really good. I'm one of those people that, spent 20 grand with this firm and it was my last 20 grand and they didn't do anything and nothing ever happened with it. What do I do now?
I mean, read my book.
Yeah.
30 pages, read it on the toilet. And if if someone's listening right now and they can't afford the book, just send me a thing. I'll send you the book for free.
Yeah.
Cool. But realistically, if you're out of the money or you've been screwed over or whatever it is, do it yourself. Literally take the time. If you actually believe in what you're doing, whatever it is, do it yourself. Come up with that list of 10 outlets, 10 for each one. Come up with a fake email account saying you're your own publicist and pitch it to these outlets. Hey, my client,
or hire a VA for $3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go on Fiverr, go on different things, figure out different cheaper routes to kind of just get a few stories out there about yourself.
Yeah.
And build that credibility. And then, take it from there and put it in some ads, spread it out. The best is always I always tell people is if you have a service, a restaurant or, a shop or something, have your customers be the people that are promoting you. So if you're going to do an article, do a photo of a bunch of your customers in that article, because I tell you, if somebody does an article in Forbes and I'm in a photo or I'm mentioned, I'm going to share it to my audience as well, right?
Make the customer the hero of the journey,
exactly.
the hero of the story.
So if you can do that and you find different angles to do that, that's what I would say. But the pitfall that a lot of people why they screw up is, number one, they're hiring the wrong people.
Yeah.
Actually do your background checks, all that. If somebody's giving you a ton of case studies and stuff, it's probably a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a job interview. You're not saying the bad stuff, you're saying the good stuff. But do your research, Google those people's clients, see what they've actually done. When someone comes to me, go, hey, can I have some references? I'm go, no. I go on my social media, see who I work for, look at their accounts and do some actual digging and see, hey, this is cool. I like this, or I don't like it. I'm too blunt sometimes for people, some people can't take the harshness, and that's fine. But also you have to have that reality check with yourself. And that's the pitfall that most people have is they believe their thing is the greatest thing in the world. And they don't realize that
you and everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't realize they need to figure out that it's not, and what they have to do to make it. You know how many watch companies there are, how many hat companies, how many t-shirt lines, how many everything. And for everything that there is, you could probably go on Etsy or Alibaba and find it,
infinity
exactly
numbers of it. Yeah.
So, sure. I mean, unless your product is some tech or something that is totally different, which is a good story that it's totally different. But if you're something that is very similar, maybe 98% similar to something else, and really it's all marketing, then you need to figure out what the angle is. And usually it comes to who you are as a person, your own personal story. And that's what's going to sell it.
Yeah. It's in PR, it's definitely one of those, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is things,
And don't fall for those ads. I mean, if you could be in Forbes for $100, it ain't gonna happen. Like It's not really Forbes. If you can be on Yahoo, it's probably a press release or something. So do your, ask ChatGPT if this is like a real thing. Hopefully it tells you the truth.
Yeah. Like if you were my PR coach, would you accept this particular person?
Exactly. And I have that. I have like friends of mine that'll literally you've done it a few times. Like, hey man, I've got this opportunity. Like, is this something that's real?
Yeah.
And I'll look into it. And most of the time it's not.
Right.
If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes there are some good stuff that comes, right? Sure. And that's the goal, is to be able to get a lot of opportunities coming. But if you're a no name and, Joe Rogan is hitting you up tomorrow saying, hey, I want you on my show, it's probably from a fake email address and from, whatever else to kind of just, grab your pixel or something.
Yeah. He just requires a small wire of $25,000.
Right.
To
it's
account.
Meanwhile, you got Joe Rogan probably sitting somewhere like, I've been trying to send, get all this money to get all these guests. Where the fuck are they?
It was real.
It was real. It's like that guy in, India that's like, I've been trying to transfer 100,000 to all these Americans and nobody's accepting it.
The Nigerian prince is really upset that he can't give you his fortune.
I'm just trying to do some tax write-offs and nobody's accepting my money.
It was one of the most glaring examples of somebody who just pitched a good story and did it for a long time, but then eventually it collapsed, was the WeWork. That was one of those things where the whole thing was about, what was their tagline? It was something so meta. I'm blanking on what it was, but it was just something so meta that had absolutely nothing to do with co-working space. But they sold the story so well that it became a company that, the value of the company was like 40 something billion dollars or something when they were going to raise their Series C, Series B, Series C, something like that. And then, eventually it came crashing down because ultimately it's not this, lifestyle brand. It's a co-working space.
Yeah.
So
but you got to make a difference.
The new CEO came in and was like, we're cutting all this bullshit. None of this makes any sense. We are a co-working space. We sell offices to people who need an office. That is what we do.
But it's finding something that's different. And that's the thing, is I've done so many PR stunts. My first one I ever did when I was I think I was 16 years old, was a company in Canada called VG, Vehicle Gateway.
Okay.
And they just sold cars. But we were like, how do we get people to pay attention to our website? And we literally said, in Canada and Toronto, there's the CN Tower and it's owned by the government. And we said, we're going to buy the CN Tower. We put together a whole proposal and we're going to paint it neon green. And we're going to have this big neon green needle standing out of, in Toronto. We put in this whole thing with a landmark. All of a sudden, all the press is like, they're changing the name to the VG Tower from the CN Tower. How can this happen? Blah, blah, blah. And then the mayor had to come out and all this and say, no, it's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden, everybody went and crashed the site that day.
Yeah.
And that same PR stunt, I've done it so many times with Times Square. Let's rename Times Square, whatever. At the time, it was a tech company. We wanted to rename it to the tech company's name. Or Runyon Canyon in LA. Let's rename these public things. One of the funniest ones I think I ever did was the singer came into my office one time, and this is a fun Vegas connection.
Oh, nice.
She walked in, this girl, Christina Caro. Just think of a Russian hooker, what a Russian hooker would look like. This girl walks into my office and she goes, Zack, this is going to be the worst Russian accent. She goes, Zack, you make me famous. I give you $20,000. You have 30 days to make me famous. I said, duh, okay. And what I did is I said, you're going to listen to everything I say. And what we did is we came up with this whole story where this girl, I said, you're from Ukraine. She goes, yes. I go, you're from Ukraine and you grew up with Mila Kunis. And Mila Kunis left Ukraine when she was 5 years old. And when she left, she stole your pet chicken. You had a pet chicken. And she goes, okay, I had a pet chicken. And that pet chicken's name was Doggy, because you couldn't afford a dog. You had a chicken named Dog. It's so outrageous, right? Anyways, we said, you've saved up all your money all these years and you finally made it to America now as a singer. And you have a song, it's called Give Me Green Card. And the song literally went, give me green card. Give me green card. It's dumb as shit. Good song, catchy though. It's like the Psy Gangnam Style. Anyways, now you're in America and you see a billboard with Mila Kunis on it. And it's bringing back all these memories of how she stole your pet chicken. You're going to sue Mila Kunis for $5,000 for emotional damage. Emotional damage, put in that clip. So we filed a lawsuit. And I mean, we worked with Mila's team and everything. And all of a sudden, we had Mila and Ashton at the time was promoting Meerkat. And we had them do a whole thing with TMZ where they're like, who is suing us for $5,000 for stealing their pet chicken? Like, it made a headline right on TMZ. Woman sues Mila Kunis for stealing her pet chicken. Like, so outrageous, right? And then Mila responded, goes, I'm going to sue this lady for making me listen to this stupid track, right? And it was going back and forth. And this girl...
And everybody's second question is, what's the track?
What's the track? And then the track goes viral. All of a sudden, she's getting on all these TV shows talking about it, right? And then we withdrew the thing because, we're like, okay, Mila didn't mean to steal my pet chicken.
Yeah.
And then like Mila's at Stagecoach eating like chicken tenders one time, like just to play into it even more. And then this lady, she's like, okay, Zack, now the people know who I am. How do I continue this? Let's do one more thing. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go to the Hard Rock, and it's not there anymore, but they have suites that are...
It's coming back though.
It's coming back. But they have suites that are elevators. And I said, your next song is going to be called Elevator. And the song is going to go elevator go up, elevator go down. And it's just some dance music. And we're going to set the world record for most times that somebody sings their same song in an elevator in 24 hours. And literally, we parked her on a bench in an elevator in this hotel room. And we had media outlets come into the hotel, into the elevator for 24 hours. As they go up, she's singing elevator go up, elevator go down. And it just kept going and going. And we set a Guinness World Record. And she made it. And then she got her own show in Vegas, like doing this like comedy kind of stuff. Yeah, she got it for 30 days or a month. She got her own show. I never heard from her after that, but
she went back to the Ukraine.
She went back to the Ukraine. She got deported. But it just shows you that, I'm not saying everybody should sue somebody or everybody should do that. Right. But what I'm saying is it's that fun story that's totally out there, whether it's painting something green or doing a flash mob or doing an elevator or something where people are paying attention. It might have nothing to do with what you actually are doing, but they're paying attention. And if you can get people paying attention, then you can sell them on what you're doing.
Yeah. And that story too obviously plays into the reason why you probably shouldn't do those things if you're trying to build a good brand.
Well, that's what I mean. You could do the 30, you could do the 15 minutes of fame.
Right.
And yes, you can continue it. I mean, look at the Hawk Tua girl. She did her thing, and look, it's turned into a whole empire for her, career, which is great. So you can take what you're doing, but then you have to remember, you have to do credibility stuff. Yeah. That's why before, it worked with her because that's just, one of story here. But I mean, before you can do something crazy or something outside of the box, you got to do those proper placements too. You need to tell the story of who you are, lay the foundation.
That way when people go search your name afterwards,
it's real. It's not
to look at.
It's not like, oh my God, who's this girl? It's obviously a PR stunt. I mean, people know the bullshit now too. Yeah. But I mean, people like the bullshit too.
Yeah. There's a reason why reality TV it performs really well.
Exactly.
People love the bullshit.
Exactly. I mean, everything. But people need to realize you just need to think outside of the box. And that goes back to, the original question here of what is the downfall of most people is there's one track and they're just thinking one thing.
They're thinking about advertising.
It's like if you own a cake store, it's great. You can say we are the best cake. We have vegan options. We have this, that, you can think of all that, but why not, try to make the biggest freaking cake and invite the whole community to be a part of it or have a cake record. If maybe there's not a record for, the most time somebody shoves their face into a cake. Yeah. And one day you have all cakes and you invite all the kids in the neighborhood to just shove their face in your cake.
Right.
Now all of a sudden the media is talking, it's something fun, light, and you're getting eyeballs on you.
Right.
So everything that you do, no matter what it is, there is a story and something fun you can do with it. It's just figuring out what that angle is.
Sure. Yeah. Well, listen, dude, I appreciate taking the time. I want to move into a couple quick money questions. Let's get you out of here. You were an employee for a long time, in radio and PR and all that stuff, and then you ventured off on your own. When you started doing the entrepreneurial thing, did you start that as a side hustle, or was that something that you did jumped in all in type of thing?
I mean, I was working in radio, and I quit radio to get into PR just because I hated the 9 to 5. Like I hated every day is wake up, do show prep, go on air. I mean, it was fun at the beginning, but I was like, this is not for me. So then I was like, all right, PR is kind of not a 9 to 5 job. It's I always say it's a 28-hour job because like, you have celebs calling you in the middle of the night saying, hey, I want this, I need this or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think while I was doing PR and working for somebody else, I started to realize like, why am I making this person so much money and I'm not getting my fair share? I mean, there are a lot of businesses where people are content. People like, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do the job.
Like predictability.
Right. I'm going to get this, I'm going to make this much money and I'm safe. I am not a safe person. I like taking risks. I could die tomorrow. So, I always say like YOLO, no, like you live every day, you die once.
Yeah.
So like, I wanted that I can either make millions of dollars or I could fall flat on my face and make nothing, but it's all up to me and my passion and my hustle. And if I can do that, if I know I can hustle, then why not? And so while I was working for this PR guy, I was like, you know what, I need to do my own. And, I was able to buy, a part of him out. I was able to start my own company and I ran it how I wanted to run it. And that's kind of where I went into the entrepreneur space of like, all right, I'm able to now scale all these companies into, millions of dollars. Why don't I invest into some other products? Why don't I start my own products, which I have some products coming out later this year. But it's like, I just want to take that risk. So yeah, I could invest $100,000 into a product that I think is going to be great. And I know I have the media, savvy to get it there, but it could fail too.
Sure.
And if it does, then that's on me. But it's not because I didn't try. Yeah. And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur is, you're either going to do incredible things or you're going to fuck it up.
Talk to me about your personal finances. Like, what do you do? What do you do with the money that comes in? Obviously you have money coming in on the business.
Right.
Do you look at it as like, I reinvest most of it back into the business, or I take a portion of it, I put it in this, investment vehicle. I have some stocks, I have some crypto, I have some real estate. What do you do? Personal finances.
What comes in, I usually take about half of it and I put it back into the business.
Okay.
The other half, goes into my daughter. Kids are expensive.
No kidding.
So, I make sure she has everything she needs. And then with whatever's left over, I'll put into, other businesses.
Okay.
Or, into stocks, crypto. I have it all.
Okay.
And
any real estate?
Real estate, I do.
Okay.
And I just, put in all that. Or a lot of times, there's companies that come to me and they can't afford PR.
Yeah.
And they can't afford the 5, 10, 20, whatever thousand it is. So if it's a company I believe in, I'll be like, hey, you know what? Let me take some equity in you. And then some of the money that I come in with, I'll start reinvesting into their companies.
Got it.
And that way, if I'm growing them and I have my hand in the pot, why wouldn't I?
You got a stake in growing the company.
Exactly. I fucked up sometimes. There's one company I had that was like, hey, you want 10%? I was like, at the time I said no. And they're like, okay, we'll pay you your $10,000 a month. And I was like, okay, yeah, I want that. Like, I need the cash right now. And this was like years back. Anyways, I crushed it for them. And this is a lesson that I learned so hard. I crushed it for them for 6 months. I got them on everything from Forbes, Entrepreneur, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, you name it. They were everywhere. And this is all organic. They were crushing. Anyways, after our PR term, they're like, great, we have all the logos. We have all the stories. You did great. You made yourself $60,000. Here you go. Thank you. 3 months later, they sold for $1.2 billion.
Oh my God.
And I would have had 10% of that. So with that lesson in mind,
$100 million mistake.
Yeah. I now very carefully look at everything. And when it comes to money, the investments and stuff, I do take very seriously. At that time, I needed the cash. The cash was more important to me than, you
can't work for free if you got no money.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but yes, I do believe like people should always have, there are things in other accounts. If it's not investments, like put it in a money market, do something with it so that you're at least gaining interest in some regard. It shouldn't just be sitting in like your Bank of America account and sitting there.
And it gets it out. It creates something psychologically where you when you look at your account balance and it's not big.
Right.
You feel this like your fight or flight kicks in and you go like, I gotta go hustle and make sure I fill this account back up.
And that's what I don't get with people. Like a lot of people and this is entrepreneurs is like, a lot of people complain about money. And I mean, money is a tough thing to talk about with people, but they complain about money. And it's like, if you knew you had $0 in your account and tomorrow you're going to be homeless and have no food on your table, you would do everything in your freaking power to do it, especially if you have a kid. Right. Imagine like your daughter can't eat tomorrow.
Right.
What are you going to do? And you've got to figure out a way to hustle and grind and do it.
Yep.
And so if you, like you said, if you see that in your account that you only have $20,000 or $5,000 or whatever number is small to you, you're going to be able to register like, I need to work harder. Yeah. I need more clients. I need to sell more product. I need to do this. Meanwhile, you might have that backup account that you can't touch for 10 years, or you're sitting on the crypto and you're doing all that. But it kind of, again, it's that mindset of like, now you're going to freaking hustle and you're going to make it.
You got to act like you're broke, even if you got a bunch of money in the
Exactly.
bank. Write the check, get it out of your account, put it in real estate, put it in crypto, put it in stocks, put it in your 401k, put it in a money market, put it in a different app. Right. Just get it out of like when you look at your account.
Most of my Bitcoin, like I'll put it in like 2 different wallets and I'll delete those and I'll put it in my password chain somewhere. And I'm like, I don't want to even look at it.
Yeah.
Because like, especially with
I don't
Bitcoin,
be tempted.
Especially with Bitcoin today, it's like I could sell, I could buy, I could do all this, like, and all of a sudden you see it going up, so you're like, okay, maybe I should sell right now, or maybe I should buy.
Start
more,
making emotional decisions,
right? And you're making those like quick split seconds where it's like, you know, if maybe this is my investment, my goal is, and that's what I tell my brokers. I'm like, hey, here's my money. I trust you. This is the risk management I want you to take on it.
Yeah.
But please, I don't want updates.
Yeah.
I know you're going to call me with updates because that's part of your job, but like, I don't want this. My goal is in 10 to 20 years, that doubles.
Right.
And if you can make it double or whatever, at least I have something that I can fall back on. I don't want to see it.
It's the backup. And then to me, it's like you got the backup and then like some like crypto is like the backups.
Exactly. Like, or one could be your fun money. One is like, hey, you know what? Tomorrow I want to go to the Four Seasons in Bora Bora. Mm-hmm. All right, I'll sell some crypto so I can go afford that trip right now.
Sure.
Cool. Great.
Yep.
Or they're just all backups and you don't want it because if you cash out your backups, you're going to spend it all.
Yeah. Right.
Because like, if I told you right now, if I handed you $100,000 right now, Travis, you're most likely going to be like, well, this is free money. I can go spend it on something. Like I'm going to go buy this or do this, right? You're not going to think to save it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, most people wouldn't. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you would, but I mean, most people would just go spend it.
Yeah. They look at it as free money. Yeah. Like, what am I going to do with this money? Well, I just watched Beast Games. Did you watch that?
Yeah, and same fantastic. Like Squid Games, like the new season, like they did the best thing is like go up to a homeless person and you can offer them like I think he offered them like $100. Or no, he offered them a bag of bread, or he offered them a chance to win like the 30 million or whatever it was in Squid Games, right? And every single homeless person chose a chance, a 50-50 chance to get the money. Mm-hmm. And none of them won the money. And then after they lost, they were like, well, I need the bread to survive.
Yeah.
And it was like, why didn't you choose the bread first?
Right.
Choose what's going to help you survive first and then worry about, all the other things. And that's another pitfall. Let's go back again. A lot of freaking people are in it for the money.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad reason. I hate when people are like, I'm not in this to make money. Like, we're all here to make fucking money.
Right.
You need money to survive these days. Unfortunately, that's what it is. And so, but a lot of people are like, I'm only doing it for the money. Yeah. And I only want to do a story if it's going to make me money. I only want to be doing Facebook ads if it's going to make me money and, right away.
Yeah.
And that's not the game. The game is you've got to do the steps to go there. There is no quick hack to make. If somebody's telling you, hey, invest $10,000 into Facebook ads and you're going to make yourself $20,000, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Most likely you're going to have, lose a lot at the beginning until you figure out what the pixel and what the audience and all that.
Winning ad,
before it goes. Mm-hmm. But people are like, no.
Massively underestimate the volume of work that needs to be done to find a winning ad.
Right.
And then how much money it's going to take along the way to finally get to that point.
Exactly.
And then most people still lose money to acquire the customer up front. And then they make money on the back end after, they
But they don't realize that. They don't realize the funnel and how that's a whole other conversation with other guests.
Sure.
But like, they don't realize like, if somebody's paying me $10,000 and they're like, hey, I'll pay you $10,000, get me in Rolling Stone. I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
But I tell them straight up, I'm like, that's not going to make your song go number one.
Right.
That's not going to bring you customers. Because if you think it is, you're not going to make that $10,000 back.
Right.
Now, that'll help you in an ad.
Right.
That might help you get there, or it might help you in the long term and this and that.
27 months from now, somebody's going to find that, article and offer you an opportunity to come sing at this place. And then somebody in that audience is going to hear you sing there and they're going, that's the worst part about like trying to sell something like PR or like what I was doing podcast bookings. It's the worst part because like it's the serendipitous moments that happen as a result of the activity that is the reason to do the activity. But it's really, really hard to sell because it's not a direct. I can't tell you that this story is going to unfold. Like, you know what I mean? Like the 2 years from now, you're going to get this gig and you're going to go do that gig. And then somebody in the audience is going to offer you an opportunity to sign this thing. Like, we don't know anything that's going to happen from this. All I know is that it's going to do good things if you are in this for the long haul.
And that's the point of it. It's like, I tell every investor, every entrepreneur is, the stories that you put out there right now, especially if you're at a high of a company, like if you're like the CEO of a company, why not do some personal stories about who you are?
Yeah.
Because after that company sells and you want to go on to the next thing in your life, that story's still going to be out there, how you created and did. And that's going to help you in the future. But it's the same thing with money. Like, invest in things that are going to help you in the future, or, you know, save your money. Like, don't spend it all in one place. And that's what I look. So again, your original question is, yeah, I spend 50 more. I put into, 50% I put back into my company. The rest I kind of, distribute around. Places. My daughter always comes first, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, but if she wants that toy, I'm getting her that toy.
You're the sucker.
Don't tell her mom that.
Yeah, dude, it's definitely one of those things. You got to commit to the long term, regardless of if it's wealth building, if it's health, if it's building a business.
I mean, I'm bad too. I mean, the long
I was going to ask you, what's your spending vice?
Honestly, these days it's what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've had a lot of people around me, some people pass away, some people go through tough times. And my mindset has always been like, right now, like, if your dad or your mom was about to die, right now, you would leave this podcast right this second. You would drop everything and go fucking be with them. Mm-hmm. But how come people aren't like that when it's something positive? Why aren't they thinking that, like, I just want to call my mom today because I just want to fucking talk to her.
Yeah. And
people don't do that. And it's same with friendships, same with, other things, same with business. Like, I want to do this opportunity, but you know what? I'll put it off for 10 years and I'll make my money doing, being a nurse, but then I want to become, whatever else. So I kind of live that way, which is good and bad in a sense. So like money, like if I want to go on a trip, I go on the fucking trip.
Yeah.
And when I go, I do spend. I want to make sure, like, I was just in Iceland.
So
experiences are like my vice.
Yeah. It's the best vice to have, honestly.
Yeah. I don't spend money on watches. I don't do the tangible stuff really. I mean, like, I've got some nice stuff.
Yeah.
And that's, but for instance, like I use this as a great example is a couple of years ago, I bought this really nice, very expensive, I won't say the price on it, Rolex. And I was like, you know what? I feel good. I want to buy this Rolex. I'm going to do a gift for myself. It's not for anybody else. It's not to be showy, anything. I bought it, got delivered to my house. I put it on my wrist and I looked at myself and I said, this isn't me. I am never going to fucking wear this. Yeah. Why did I buy this thing? I could have spent this money on this many trips.
Right.
My daughter could have done this and that, all this kind of stuff. And I literally returned it. And that mentality, I think a lot of people, and I see it a lot in like Miami, LA, and places, and Vegas too.
The
like,
status chase.
The status change. Like, it's great. Sometimes you do have to fake it to make it.
Yeah. But in certain industries, it's almost unavoidable, but
like, why spend, $100,000, $200,000 on a car and live in, $1,000 a month apartment?
Yeah. Right,
like, what is the point of that?
Yeah.
You're just, because pretty much then you're just spending to keep up with your persona.
Well, it also tells me that you actually couldn't afford it.
Right.
It's like your definition of affording is much different than my definition of being able to afford it.
And those are the people selling the $100 to be in Forbes placements.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's just like, be true to yourself. Like, figure out what makes you happy and live it that way. Like, it took me a while, but I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks about me. Like right now, like, I don't care if you like me or don't. I don't care if people talk shit, all that. I mean, there's some people that do care. And to me, like, I'll spend what I want to spend if I can afford it. I know my budget. I do budget. I do, I have talks every day with my accountant, but live your life, man.
Yeah.
Like, you never know. Like right now, like I had a buddy, this was a year ago, 32-year-old guy, walked down the stairs, had 2 kids, had a heart attack, died right then and there at 32. And I was just like, wow, like, you don't know. And so spend on whatever you can. Like, look at Steve Jobs, look at all these people. Like, you don't leave the world with nothing, right? Like, you leave butt naked.
Yep.
I always say I want, a water bottle in my coffin, just, in case I do wake up and I am thirsty or something. But like, I think people need to live their life truly how they want to, but also within their own means.
Yeah.
People can't live outside of their means. And a lot of people do that, and it fucks them so bad, and it hurts them because, then you have like these girls, guys, using people for meals or doing this or that. Like, then you're hustling every day for everyday necessities rather than, for the bigger picture. And I hate to see it.
Absolutely, dude. Man, it's been a fun conversation, Zach. Where can people go to get more from Zack Teperman?
Yeah, just, Google, Instagram, ztpr.net, go on Travis's page, go under his friends list, search my name, and, send me a DM. Don't send me any pictures, though.
Zack, thanks so much for doing this.
That's how Travis got my attention.
That is
huge. No.
Yeah. It's not duplicatable for everybody, though. So
exactly.
Don't try that. Zack, thanks for doing this, bro. If you're watching this, enough of the bullshit, go check out Zack's book.
If you don't like the book, it's good toilet paper. It might hurt you. One ply.
And then ztpr.net if you're looking for PR services. Zack's the guy that I literally did give my money to do this for me, and he actually did a good job. So ztpr.net for all things PR, and then go check out some of the stuff that Zack's doing. He's always doing something cool, going somewhere cool, hanging out with cool people, so you will not regret it. Everybody else, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Remember, money only solves money problems. Then you're left with the problems money can't solve, but it's easier to solve those problems if you got some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Catch you next time. Peace out.
Boom.